Pulgasari from 1985. This movie is our first North Korean monster flick, and to my knowledge, the only one of its kind. One of the more interesting things about this movie is its somewhat terrifying production. You see, in the late 70s, Shin Sang-ok, a South Korean director, and his ex-wife/actress, Cho Yeon-lee, were both kidnapped and taken to North Korea, where they were both forced to work on several film projects against their will. And this would go on into the mid-80s when the two were finally able to escape safely from the country. That's basically an abridged version of the story. If you want, there's a great documentary you can watch on YouTube that goes into full detail on the events if you're interested. The last movie director Sang-ho worked on before his getaway was Pulgasari, a monster based on a Korean mythical creature, Pulgasari, that would consume metal. This type of movie was specifically made due to Kim Jong-il's supposed love for Godzilla films, particularly the 1984 film. And when it comes to North Korean films, this one's probably the most well known due to it being a kaiju movie. Yes, North Korean had made films prior to the kidnapping, and Sang-ho did make more than just Pulgasari while up there, but personally speaking, this is the only one I generally have any interest in, and I feel it's the same with most people. Anyway, the movie takes place in feudal Korea and starts off with a tyrant king wanting to take all the iron from various villagers to make more weapons for his army. Upon one of the king's raids, he takes and locks up a blacksmith who sculpts up some rice into a figure. After his death, his daughter hangs on to the clay figure until a bit of her blood accidentally drops onto it, thus bringing it to life. Shortly after, it starts consuming metal and grows bigger and bigger until it eventually reaches Godzilla size. The giant befriends the villagers and aids them to fight back against the malicious king and his army. Let's get this out of the way right now. This movie, despite it being a kaiju movie, is a communist propaganda film. You see, when Sang-ok was tasked to make Kim Jong's movies, they all had to have this communist theme to them, even one about a giant monster. I'm not really going to touch upon the subject because I don't think you people want to hear me talk about communism, do you? Anyway, the title monster of the movie, Pulgasari, I think looks great. In fact, at this point, I'd say he's the best looking Korean creature. He looks more badass than Yongari and looks a million times better than Ape. It's just an overall cool looking monster design, and the fact that he's made out of metal just makes him cooler. To help bring the beast to life, they got Toho of all companies to aid them with the effects, particularly the team who worked on Godzilla's revival in 1984. Speaking of Godzilla, they got Kenpachiro Satsuma to play Pulgasari, who had previously played Godzilla a year prior to this film, and played both Hedorah and Gigan in the past as well. As for tiny Pulgasari, they got Little Man Machan, who prior to this had played Minya in the Showa era films. One thing I do have to complain though is just the way the movie looks. And I'm not talking about the setting or anything like that, I'm talking about the way the movie is presented. If not knowing this movie came out in the 80s, you'd probably think this was a late 60s film. The movie was in a 4:3 aspect ratio when I viewed it. Supposedly they shot the movie in widescreen, but I'm failing to find any footage that isn't full screen. I mentioned before both Sang and Choi escaped shortly after this movie was finished, and because of that, Kim Jong quickly pulled the movie out of theaters, and for the longest time it was a North Korean exclusive, until about 13 years later when the movie was given its first international release in Japan in 1998, and since then it's kinda gotten a cult following. The monster in the 2016 movie Colossal was actually inspired from Pulgasari, and did you know this movie also got a Western remake in the mid-90s? Gilgameth, a 1996 fantasy kids film which also goes by The Legend of Gilgameth and The Adventures of Gilgameth. To get things straight, this is not a Korean monster movie at all, but the reason why I'm including it here is because of Sang-ok. The story was based upon his Pulgasari story. The movie even credits him for it. The film takes place in medieval times where it focuses on a young prince named Devon. Before his father's death, Devon is given a small statue of a creature called Gilgameth. After shedding a tear for his father, the statue comes to life and Devon quickly befriends the creature. The man who secretly poisoned the king named LL begins ruling over the kingdom and tries to get rid of Devon. But with the help of Gilgameth, Devon revolts against the evil tyrant and attempts to take back the kingdom with his new friends and allies. Having just seen both Pulgasari and this movie back to back, I can definitely see the similarities in the story. I just find it a little hard to believe Sang-ok would want to work on something that would remind him of his kidnapping. Maybe he actually enjoyed Pulgasari. The film is nothing really all that special in terms of medieval movies, but it is enjoyable. I did have a good time watching it and even got a laugh in here and there. Gelgi, as our main character calls him, looks like a cross between the live-action 90s Ninja Turtles and Minion from Son of Godzilla. He often has this goofy smile on his face, which the film harkens back to time and time again in close-up. The little Pulgasari at least still had somewhat of a menacing look to him. Midway through the movie, as he gets bigger, he starts looking a little more better, but still not as cool as Pulgasari. However, there's one point in the movie where I think Gelgi does shine over his predecessor. It's a scene where he's trapped in a burning building, it explodes, and he emerges with his volcanic-like skin. It reminds me of when a monster reaches critical mass in the Godzilla Unleashed video game. In this state, Gilgamesh can set anything he touches to flames, and he can shoot fire. It's a cool scene and I wish the movie had done more like it. If you're expecting a lot of monster destruction scenes, I'm sad to say there just really isn't many of them. In fact, I can recall just one scene that had a miniature with Gilgamesh. Speaking of effects, at times they could be pretty decent, and other times, well...
My God.
Overall, despite it being a kid/family film, I do recommend this movie. Both films, in fact. However, neither film is really that easy to come by. As of now, they both don't have an official disc release, and as far as I know, neither of them play on any streaming services. However, both full movies can be viewed on YouTube. If you're interested, I'd watch them as soon as you can before whatever reason they get taken down.